You've probably never given it much thought, but the way we live together today has roots in the quiet, unspoken agreements of ancient hunter-gatherers.
These weren't just people surviving. They were building something far more complex than survival. Something we still feel in our bones today. What if the seeds of cooperation, fairness, and trust were planted not in grand cities, but in the quiet, shared labor of early humans? This isn't just history. It's the foundation of everything that came after, and it's worth unraveling, one story at a time. So what exactly are we talking about? We're not just discussing history. We're peeling back the layers of how humans first began to work together. Not out of necessity, but out of something deeper. Something that shaped the course of our species. This isn't about survival alone. It's about the first flickers of cooperation. Shared knowledge, shared tools, shared stories. That allowed our ancestors to move beyond individual struggle and imagine something greater than themselves. These early bonds were the foundation for everything that followed. Cities, laws, and the complex societies we know today. They were the first steps toward building something that could outlast any one person. So when we look at the origins of cooperation, we're not just looking at the past. We're seeing the roots of what makes us human. Our ability to care for one another, to build, to dream, and to create something that lasts. You might not think about it, but the way we work together today is a direct echo of ancient cooperation. Every time you collaborate with someone, you're continuing a tradition that has shaped human survival for thousands of years. Understanding this history can help you see the hidden patterns in how modern teams function. The same trust, reciprocity, and shared goals that once saved our ancestors are still the keys to success in today's world. When you care about these origins, you're not just learning history. You're learning how to build better relationships, communities, and societies. It's about seeing the deep roots of what makes us human. So even if you don't feel it, you're already part of a legacy that stretches back tens of thousands of years. Every interaction, every shared goal, is a continuation of this deep and ancient story. We start in the shadows of the African savanna, where early humans first learned to share. Hunter-gatherer groups, small and mobile, relied on cooperation to survive. This wasn't just practical. It was the birth of trust, the first seeds of social bonds that would shape human history. As societies grew, so did the need for more complex cooperation. The first villages emerged near rivers, where people shared knowledge of water sources and crops. These were not just places to live, they were the crucibles of human culture and collective memory. With the development of writing, cooperation became more formalized. Laws, records, and trade agreements were the new tools of unity. These systems allowed for larger groups to function, but also created new sources of conflict and control. As empires rose and fell, cooperation evolved into something more intricate. The balance between centralized power and communal effort became a defining struggle of human civilization. It was this tension that shaped everything from governance to religion to art. From the first sharing of food to the signing of treaties, cooperation has always been the thread that binds human history. It is not perfect, nor is it natural. Yet, it is the reason we have survived, adapted, and thrived as a species. You know when you share your last cookie with a friend? That's what cooperation started with. We shared food, and that made everyone safer. Long ago, humans didn't have much, but when we worked together, we could find more food, and that helped us survive. Cooperation wasn't just about food. It was about helping each other, learning from one another, and making sure no one was left behind. That's how we started to build communities. We didn't just live alone. We lived together, and that's how we grew. Before anything else, there must be a group. Not just any group, but one that shares a common goal, a mutual need, and a sense of belonging. This foundation is what allows cooperation to take root, not just a fleeting moment, but as sustained effort. This group is not formed by chance. It is built on trust, necessity, and a shared understanding of the world around them. They are bound by the simple fact that survival depends on working together, not just surviving alone. They must also have a leader, not a ruler, but someone who guides, mediates, and ensures that the group remains cohesive. This role is not inherited, but earned through wisdom, experience, and the ability to listen. But even a leader cannot act alone. The group must be willing to follow, to adapt, and to trust in the collective intelligence of the whole. This trust is what turns a collection of individuals into a community. The setup is not just about forming a group, but about creating a space where cooperation can thrive. It's about laying the groundwork for the kind of collaboration that will lead to innovation, stability, and the first steps towards civilization. The first step was recognizing the need, but the second is figuring out how to meet it. Cooperation isn't just about wanting to help. It's about finding a way to align actions and resources. This requires trust, a fragile thing built on repeated small acts. A shared glance, a lifted tool, a wordless nod. These are the first threads of a system that binds people together. The mechanism of cooperation is built on reciprocity. It's not always equal, but it's always mutual. A gift today, a favor tomorrow. This is how relationships are sustained. This system is not rigid. It adapts. It evolves with the needs of the group, with the shifting landscape, with the rise of new challenges and the fall of old ones. It's not just about survival. It's about creating something greater than the sum of its parts. A society, a culture, a way of being that transcends the individual. The clever twist comes when cooperation isn't just about sharing resources, but about creating systems that reward trust and punish betrayal. This shift transforms loose alliances into structured groups with rules and roles. These systems don't emerge from force, but from repeated interactions that reinforce patterns of behavior. A successful hunt, a shared meal, or a peaceful resolution to a conflict all feed into this evolving social fabric. The twist lies in the realization that cooperation is not just about immediate gain, but about long-term stability. It requires foresight, empathy, and the ability to see beyond the self into the collective good. This shift from simple reciprocity to structured cooperation marks the first true step toward the emergence of complex societies. It's the moment when humans began to build not just together, but with a vision for the future. Beneath the surface of our shared human story, a science of cooperation has been quietly shaping us. It's not just culture or tradition. It's something older, more primal, encoded in our very biology. Neuroscience reveals that our brains are wired for collaboration. Mirror neurons, empathy circuits, and social bonding chemicals. These are not coincidences, but evolutionary shortcuts. Genetic studies show that our species didn't just evolve in isolation. Shared genes, shared behaviors, and even shared microbes point to a deep interconnected history of mutual aid. Anthropologists and biologists now agree that cooperation is not a social construct. It's a biological imperative. It's what allowed us to survive, thrive, and eventually create the societies we know today. The science of cooperation is not just about survival. It's about connection. It's in the way we share, support, and sustain each other, even when it costs us something. Imagine a single thread stretched across time, connecting every act of cooperation from the first shared hunt to the first shared tool. It's not just a thread. It's a tapestry woven from trust, necessity, and the slow realization that we are not alone. This thread is not perfect, but it's real. It has frayed edges, knots, and even occasional breaks. Yet, it holds together because each person who added to it believed in the possibility of something greater than themselves. The beauty of this analogy is that it doesn't pretend to be perfect. It's gloriously dumb in the best way. It doesn't explain everything, but it makes us see that we are all part of something larger, something that we built together, slowly and surely. So let's not be so quick to call this process perfect. It's messy, It's slow, and it's often painful, but it's also deeply human. It's the story of how we learned to trust each other, even when we didn't know what we were building. And in the end, this tapestry is not about perfection. It's about persistence, about the courage to keep adding stitches, even when the pattern is unclear, even when the thread is fraying. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. You're standing on the edge of a vast desert, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dunes. The silence is broken only by the whisper of the wind and the distant echo of ancient footsteps. In your hand, you hold a small stone tool, worn smooth by time. It's not just a tool. It's a testament to the first hands that shaped the world with purpose, not by chance. What we call civilization didn't begin with kings or cities. It began with a single question: how can we live better together? And so, from the dust of the desert, came the first institutions. Not laws, not rules, but the first glimmers of collective action, the first seeds of what would become the world we know. This is the story of how we built the world, not by accident, but by choice, by cooperation, by the will to create something enduring. So what exactly are we talking about? When we speak of civilization, we're not just referring to cities or monuments. We're looking at the systems that allowed people to live together, share resources, and build something greater than themselves. These systems, laws, economies, religions, aren't just rules. They're the frameworks that turn individual ambition into collective progress. They define how we work, who we trust, and what we value as a society. Collective action is the engine of civilization. It's the reason we have roads, schools, and the ability to look back and say, we did this together. It's not just about survival. It's about building something enduring. But collective action isn't always easy. It requires trust, compromise, and a shared vision. And when that vision falters, so too does the civilization that depends on it. So when we talk about the rise of civilization, we're really talking about the rise of institutions and the power of collective action. It's a story of human ingenuity, resilience, and the will to create something lasting. You might think this is all ancient history, but the institutions we take for granted today, governments, laws, economies, still shape your life in ways you don't fully see. Every time you vote, pay taxes, or even use a smartphone, you're participating in the same kind of collective action that built cities and empires thousands of years ago. The reason we live in a world where millions can cooperate on a global scale is because we've inherited the tools of civilization, systems that were once radical and now seem inevitable. You should care because your future isn't just about you. It's about the fragile, shared frameworks that allow us to build, sustain, and imagine something greater than ourselves. Understanding how civilization works isn't just academic. It's a way to see the world more clearly and to decide how you want to be part of it. We begin in the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia, where rivers carved the path for the first cities. People gathered, built walls, and created systems that would shape the future of human life. In Egypt, the Nile's floodwaters nourished fields and mines. Monuments rose, and laws were written on papyrus, binding society with a shared purpose and a vision of order. The Greeks invented democracy, philosophy, and the idea that collective action could lead to progress. Their city-states were laboratories for thought, conflict, and civic identity. The Roman Empire expanded, built roads, and codified law. It was a machine of governance and expansion, binding vast territories under a single system of rule and administration. Then came the Middle Ages, where institutions like the church and feudal systems shaped the rhythm of life. The collective effort of monks, knights, and peasants built the foundations of the modern world. Each step, from the first city to the birth of modern states, was a collective decision. Institutions were not just structures. They were the will of people working together for a shared future. Imagine a group of people working together, not just for themselves, but for everyone. They build roads, make rules, and help each other. That's how civilization started. They didn't do it alone. They trusted each other to follow the rules, even when no one was watching. That trust made it possible to do big things together. That team is called an institution. It's not just buildings or laws, it's the way people agree to work together for the good of all. So the core idea is when people decide to work together, even when it's hard, they can build something lasting. That's the start of civilization. To build a civilization, you first need a foundation. That foundation is not just land or resources, but the shared belief in something greater than the self. This belief must be simple enough to pass down, yet powerful enough to unite people across generations. If it becomes the glue that holds the collective together. This belief gives rise to something tangible, a set of rules, a shared purpose, or a common enemy. It's the first step in creating the kind of order that allows people to work together toward a common goal. Without this initial setup, the next steps, like forming institutions or engaging in collective action, would have no foundation. The civilization would lack the unity to sustain itself. So, the first beat of civilization is not about power or wealth, but about belief. It's the quiet, unspoken agreement that we are part of something larger, something worth building. Once the idea of a shared purpose is in place, the next step is to create a system that channels individual effort toward that goal. This requires a structure, a way to organize people, allocate resources, and enforce accountability. This structure often takes the form of institutions, formal or informal rules that govern how people contribute and benefit. These institutions can be as simple as a shared calendar or as complex as a legal code. These institutions create a feedback loop. They make cooperation more efficient, and as cooperation improves, the community gains more power to expand and adapt. The mechanism is not just about control, but about coordination. But the mechanism also requires trust, not just in the institution, but in the people who run it. When trust is absent, the system falters, and a collective effort can dissolve into chaos. Thus, the second step in the rise of civilization is not just about building systems, but about ensuring they reflect the values and needs of the people they serve. It is the bridge between vision and action. The clever twist lies in the design of institutions themselves, not just as rules, but as systems that channel human ambition into shared goals. These systems are not rigid. They adapt, evolve, and reward cooperation over competition. Institutions create feedback loops, where success is measured not by individual gain, but by collective progress. This allows for long-term planning and risk-taking, as the rewards are shared across generations. This is how civilizations scale beyond the limits of any one person. It's not about the strength of the individual, but the strength of the system that allows the individual to thrive within it. The clever twist is the realization that human progress is not a product of genius, but of structure. It's the art of creating systems that make ordinary people capable of extraordinary things. Beneath the grand narratives of empires and temples, the quiet revolution was taking place. The laws of physics and chemistry, invisible yet unyielding, shaped the very foundation of human progress. The same forces that shaped mountains and rivers also shaped the first cities. Water, gravity, and the properties of earth and fire became the silent architects of civilization. This was not magic, but method. The same principles that govern the behavior of matter and energy also govern the behavior of people, in ways they were only beginning to comprehend. The real engine of civilization was not just the will to build, but the ability to understand the world through observation and logic, a process that would take thousands of years to fully unfold. The science of the past was not separate from the world it sought to explain. It was the world itself, made legible through human curiosity and perseverance. Think of civilization as a fire that needs constant tending. It's not just about the flame, but the fuel, the hands that feed it, and the people who know when to add more or step back. Institutions are the kindling, small, seemingly insignificant, but essential for the fire to catch. They're the rules, the traditions, the shared understanding that keeps the flame alive. Collective action is the act of gathering around the fire, not just to stay warm, but to build something bigger. It's the shared effort that makes the fire burn longer than any single person could sustain alone. The fire may flicker and it may go out, but the knowledge of how to keep it going is passed down through generations. That's the true power of civilization. The ability to remember and rebuild. So, in the end, we are not just individuals, but keepers of the flame. We carry the memory of how to build, maintain, and pass on the fire of civilization. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. There's something humbling about standing in a place where history isn't just written. It's felt. You can almost hear the echoes of stories that have shaped generations. These stories, myths, prayers, parables, are more than just words. They are the invisible threads that bind us to our ancestors and to each other. They are the language of the unspoken, the bridge between the known and the unknowable. And they're not just for the past. They shape the present and the future. We tell these stories to make sense of the world, to find meaning in the chaos, and to remember who we are in a world that keeps changing. But what happens when the stories we tell no longer feel like our own? When the past feels distant and the future feels uncertain? That's the question this video wants to explore. How shared narratives shape identity, and what happens when they start to unravel. So, what exactly are we talking about? It's not just stories. It's the stories we live by, the stories that shape who we are and how we see the world. These are the stories that bind us to our past, to our ancestors, to the myths and faiths that have carried us through time and across generations. Shared narratives are more than just tales. They are the architecture of identity, the scaffolding that holds our beliefs and values together. They are the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of the world, to find meaning in chaos, and to connect with something greater than ourselves. And in a world that is increasingly fragmented, these stories are what help us feel seen, understood, and part of something enduring. You think your story is unique, but it's built on the bones of others. Every belief, every ritual, every myth you hold has been shaped by the hands of those who came before you. The stories we share aren't just about the past. They're the compasses that guide us through the unknown. They help us make sense of who we are and who we might become. When we care about these shared narratives, we care about the collective memory of our species. We are not just individuals. We are threads in a vast, ancient tapestry. To ignore these stories is to risk losing touch with the very foundation of what makes us human. Our myths and religions are not just beliefs. They are the roots of our identity. So, yes, you should secretly care about this. Because the stories we share are what bind us together, even in a world that often feels divided. We start in the earliest fireside gatherings, where stories were more than entertainment. They were the first language of the soul, binding people to the earth and to each other. Myths were the earliest maps of the unknown, guiding tribes through forests, deserts, and the mysteries of birth and death, shaping what it meant to be human. Every culture carved its own story into the stones, the scrolls, the songs, and the bones, each one a testament to the need to belong, to remember, and to be heard. These shared narratives were not just about the past. They were the scaffolding of the present, the roots of the future, and the glue that held civilizations together. Even as the world changes, the human need to tell and believe in stories remains, shaping who we are and who we will become. Imagine you're in a big room with a lot of people, and everyone is telling a story about where they came from. Some stories are about gods, some about heroes, and some about the world they live in. All those stories make you feel like you're part of something bigger. These stories aren't just made up. They help us understand who we are. They're like a map that shows where we've been and where we're going. Without them, we might feel lost or alone. When we share these stories, we're not just talking about the past. We're building something together. Something that helps us face the future. It's like we're all holding hands across time. So, even though we're different, these shared stories help us find common ground. They're what makes us feel connected, even when the world feels big and confusing. The first step in building a shared narrative is setting the stage, a moment of collective silence, where no one speaks, but everyone listens. It's not just the absence of sound, but the presence of intention. This silence is not emptiness. It's a kind of reverence, a sacred pause that allows the story to begin without the noise of competing voices. It's a moment of collective breath before the first word is spoken. This foundation is not just about what happened, but how it was felt. The setup is where the emotional core of the narrative is planted. It's where the listeners are asked to pause, to feel, and to believe. In the setup, the storyteller is not just recounting a tale, but inviting the audience to step into a shared world. This is where the story becomes more than words. It becomes a living, breathing part of the group's identity. Once the myth is born, it must be passed on, not just told, but lived. This is where rituals and symbols become the bridge between generations, shaping what we believe and how we feel. Rituals are more than acts. They are echoes of the past, resonating in the present to anchor identity. They transform the abstract into the tangible, the sacred into the shared. Through these symbols, individuals become part of something greater, a lineage of believers, a community of meaning. The myth is no longer just a story. It is the foundation of who they are. This is the mechanism, the transfer of meaning through ritual, symbol, and repetition. It is how the past continues to speak, how identity is built not in isolation, but in communion. The clever twist is the moment where the story bends, where the familiar becomes strange, and the truth is revealed not through fact, but through meaning. It's not just about the story itself, but how it is told, how it makes you question what you know, how it shifts your understanding of reality. This twist is what turns a simple story into a mirror, one that reflects not just the world, but the soul of those who listen. It's the moment when the story doesn't end. It begins again, changed, and now carried by those who have seen the twist. Beneath the stories we tell, there is a science of connection, a hidden rhythm that binds us, neurological, evolutionary, and emotional. Our brains are pattern-seeking machines, and shared narratives are the patterns we crave. Neuroscience shows that when we hear a story, our brain activates the same regions as when we experience it firsthand. This is why myths and religions feel so real, so alive, so personal. Even today, the human brain is wired to seek out meaning, to find patterns, to believe in something greater than ourselves. Whether it's a god, a myth, or a shared identity, we need it to feel whole. The science of shared narratives is not just about the mind. It's about the heart. It's the reason we build temples, write hymns, and gather in circles to tell the same stories again and again. In the quiet hum of the brain, beneath the surface of the stories we live by, there's a science of belonging, a science that reminds us we are not just individuals, but parts of something far greater. Imagine a group of strangers sitting around a fire, sharing a story that has been passed down for generations. It's not just a tale. It's a map of who they are, where they come from, and where they're going. Each word they speak is a brick in the foundation of a shared identity, a structure that holds them together even when the world outside is uncertain and shifting. The story may be simple, even absurd, but it's the kind of truth that sticks in the bones. It's the kind of truth that shapes lives, that defines what it means to belong. In the end, we are all just telling stories, and the ones that matter are the ones that remind us of who we are, even when we can't remember. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. You wake up to the sound of 1,000 alarms, not in your head, but in the world. A world that no longer speaks the same language, thinks the same way, or shares the same goals. We are more connected than ever, yet more divided. The internet has made the world smaller, but not necessarily kinder. It's like a global village with no shared kitchen or common ground. The challenge isn't just about disagreeing. It's about living in the same world while building walls, both physical and ideological, with every day that passes. Cooperation is no longer a choice. It's a necessity. But in a world that's fragmented, how do we find common ground? How do we talk when we're all speaking different dialects? This video is about the strange beauty of trying to connect in a world that seems determined to stay apart. It's about the quiet, persistent hope that maybe, just maybe, we can still learn to share. We're talking about a world where the lines between truth and manipulation blur, and where trust is no longer a given, but a currency we have to fight to keep. It's not just about fake news anymore. It's about the erosion of shared reality, where different groups live in their own filtered bubbles, disconnected from the lives and struggles of others. This isn't just a political problem. It's a human one. It's about how we define ourselves, how we relate to one another, and how we navigate the chaos of modern life without losing our sense of common purpose. Cooperation is no longer a choice. It's a necessity. But in a world that rewards division, it's becoming harder to imagine a future where we can stand together, even for a moment. You think your life is separate from the chaos of the world. But every action you take, every choice you make, is part of a web that connects us all. Whether it's the food you eat, the technology you use, or the values you live by, you are entangled in the same fragile system. When countries turn inward, they don't just hurt their own people. They destabilize the global economy, create shortages, and fuel conflicts that ripple across borders. You may not feel the impact immediately, but it's there in the rising prices, the scarcity, and the uncertainty of the future. The more we fragment, the less we understand each other. We lose the ability to empathize, to listen, to work together. We become islands in a sea of confusion, and in that sea, no one is safe. So, yes, you might not feel it in your daily life, but the world is changing, and it's changing in ways that will eventually touch you. The question is, will you wait until it's too late, or will you be part of the solution? We begin not with today, but with the fall of Rome. The collapse of a civilization that once united a continent, now scattered into fragments, each with its own language, customs, and destiny. Then came the Middle Ages, a time of feudal divisions, religious wars, and the slow birth of nation-states. Empires rose and fell, but cooperation was often a casualty of ambition and fear. The Age of Empires saw the world connected through trade and conquest, but also through exploitation and division. The map was drawn, but the lines were never just borders. They were walls. The 20th century brought 2 world wars and the Cold War, each a testament to how easily cooperation can be replaced by suspicion, rivalry, and the illusion of security. Today, we face a world where technology has connected us more than ever. Yet trust is harder to build. The old divisions remain, and new ones have emerged in the name of identity and ideology. Imagine a world where everyone has their own little island, and no one wants to share a boat. That's what it's like when we stop listening to each other. But the ocean is big, and the waves are strong. If we don't work together, we'll all sink in the same storm. The boat is the only way to stay afloat, and it needs all of us to row in the same direction, even when the wind is against us. It's not easy. Sometimes the waves are too high, and the wind too strong. But we keep rowing because we know we can't do it alone. So the question is, will we keep rowing together? Or will we let the waves take us apart? The first step is to acknowledge the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. A world of borders, of competing values, of mistrust that has taken root in the soil of history. We begin with the premise that cooperation is not a given. It must be cultivated, even when the ground is dry and the air is thick with silence. It requires an honest accounting of the past, of wounds inflicted, of promises broken, of the silence that allowed fractures to deepen into chasms. And it begins with a shared understanding that we are not just individuals, but threads in a tapestry that is fraying at the edges, and that mending it will take more than one hand. At the core of this mechanism lies a fragile exchange of trust. It's not just about words, but the quiet assumption that others will act in good faith, even when the stakes are high. This trust is built on shared vulnerabilities. When no one is fully sure of the outcome, the only way forward is to acknowledge that we are all in this together, even if we don't fully believe it. But trust is a double-edged sword. It allows cooperation, but it also opens the door to exploitation. The moment one party begins to suspect betrayal, the whole system can unravel. So the mechanism relies on transparency, but only up to a point. Too much truth can be paralyzing. Too little, and the illusion of cooperation collapses into cynicism. In the end, it's not about perfect information or perfect trust. It's about managing the uncertainty, navigating the space between cooperation and competition, and finding a fragile balance that keeps the system from breaking. The clever twist is not in the tools, but in the trust we choose to give to one another. When cooperation is no longer assumed, it must be earned, and that requires a willingness to risk vulnerability. It's the moment when you decide not to build walls, but instead to build bridges, knowing that the other side might not be where you expect them to be. This twist is the recognition that we are not just individuals with shared goals, but a mosaic of identities, histories, and fears, all of which shape how we connect and what we can truly achieve together. The clever twist is that cooperation is not a straight path. It's a dance of uncertainty, where we move with each other, sometimes in step, sometimes in hesitation, always in the hope of finding harmony. This is where the real work begins. Not in agreement, but in the courage to listen, to question, and to believe that even in a fragmented world, we might still find a way to move forward together. Beneath our political divides and cultural clashes, a quiet science hums, united in its purpose, yet fractured in its application. It is the science of climate, of genetics, of astrophysics, all pointing toward a singular truth. We are inextricably linked. These sciences do not care for borders, nor do they distinguish between nations. They simply exist, indifferent to our conflicts, yet deeply affected by our choices. We have the tools, the knowledge, the capacity for understanding. What we lack is the will to wield them in the service of unity, rather than the pursuit of power. The science does not ask for our trust, only our attention. It does not demand our allegiance, only our responsibility. It is the silent witness to our choices and the mirror to our future. Imagine a world where every country is a person, but none of them can hear the others. They speak in different languages, and even when they try to shout, the sound just fades into the noise. The world is louder, but no one is listening. We try to talk, but we're all too busy trying to be right. We build walls, not bridges. We debate the meaning of words, but never the meaning of our shared future. The more we argue, the more we lose sight of what we're trying to achieve. Yet, in the middle of this chaos, there are moments of connection. A shared glance, a small act of kindness, a moment of understanding. These are the flickers of hope, the rare instances when the world finally pauses and listens. Perhaps the solution is not to silence the noise, but to learn how to hear it. To find the music in the mess, the rhythm in the resistance. To realize that even in the loudest chaos, there is still a chance for harmony. We are not alone in this struggle. We are not the first to face division, nor will we be the last. But maybe, if we listen closely enough, we can still find a way to speak across the silence. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end.